Hi, my name is Rodney Fowler, and I'm here today to talk to you about Intuit Practice Management. I plan on giving a one-on-one presentation about how to track engagements, how to set up engagement types, and how to go in and configure those engagement types. I'll delve slightly into creating the engagements and establishing recurring engagements as well. But my main goal is to set up the engagement types and show you how you can link them into your workflow. Now, when I do this presentation, I'll be making an assumption that you are linking to Lacert. However, it's not critical that you do so, and many of the things will apply to both Lacert-related engagements, what we loosely call tax engagements, and to what we loosely call non-tax engagements. Effectively, you can set up an engagement to track anything, whether it be a current year tax engagement, a previous year tax engagement, or any other type of work, such as bookkeeping, payroll taxes, sales taxes, things of that nature. Where we're going to start off today is on our engagement screen, because I want to give you a general framework to operate in. The engagements dashboard has been created to give you kind of a bird's eye view within the firm. So you'll be able to go into the screen to get a bird's eye view of what's going on. You'll be able to determine if something has gotten stuck or delayed, and you'll be able to see if something needs to be assigned to someone else based on workloads, volumes, or if it just doesn't have an owner. In looking at the screen, you'll notice that it starts off in the top left corner of the screen. You have an overall status which shows you a basic pie chart. The idea is just to give you kind of a general pulse. It's not going to be something that's going to give you very detailed information. To the right of that, you're going to see an item that lists the number of engagements that you have and the aging of those engagements. Notice that I can click into an aging of those engagements and drill straight down to those types of engagements that are being impacted. Here I have 3 engagements that have not aged in 11 to 30 days, and it pulls up those 3 engagements. Now, more than likely, I have some engagements in the not started and some engagements in the bookkeeping. Basically, this is representative of defect inside the program right now. But the 3 engagements that I'll be looking at are actually within this area. If I wanted to see the 21 engagements that have been older than 31 days, I can go over there and click on that and then take a look at those. Also, on the far left-hand side, I can see if there's engagements linked to a specific preparer, simply by clicking on that preparer and taking a look at the workload that they have underneath them. Down below, I'll see the listing of engagement types and the engagements that I have created along the left-hand side, basically the row headings. And I can go into a particular cell and click on it to bring up information about what's happening inside that cell. Here I have 2 items that are both not started, and if I wanted to drill into those, I could click on View All to take me to a chart listing of that. Within View All, I can go in and either customize this screen, as you can with many of the Intuit Practice Management screens, so that I can add other fields and take a look at things that I'm specifically interested in seeing with my engagements. Or, if I would prefer, I can export this information to either Excel or PDF variants in order to take further looks at them. Let's return to our engagement dashboard for just a moment, and we'll talk about the workflow stages that go across the top of the screen. Basically, you're going to have 6 workflow stages. These are the column headings that go across the top of the screen. You have not started, received, in process, review, admin, and complete. My signed forms is a modification that I've made. When you're looking at the screen, you can have 6 workflow stages, no more, no less. So you can't have 7 or 5. However, you can change the titles, as I have here, to be pretty much anything that you want. No matter what you name your workflow stages, you can have as many sub-statuses to those as you want. For instance, if I'm going to click in here for 4, you'll notice that all 4 of those items, of which there are 2 info pending and 2 under review, exist in my in process category. If I wanted 15 or 20 different statuses to be associated with my in-process category, I could do that, and then as the engagements that those statuses are associated to fall into the in-process category, I can click on it and it will bring up a pie chart showing me the breakout of the different engagements within that group. So you might be wondering, okay, now that I know that I can create the workflow stages, and now that I know I can customize these engagement types and create different statuses for them, where do I do that? Most of the work for setting up how the program operates within Intuit Practice Management will occur in the Admin tab, basically this tab right here. The Admin tab is effectively your user options or your preferences, and it will control how all the other tabs to the left of it operate. If we go to the Admin tab, the section that controls information about the engagement dashboard is going to be your engagement types area. When you're in the engagement types area, you'll see a listing of your engagement types up at the top, and then down at the bottom you'll see your engagement workflow stages. The screen is kind of upside down in that way. Basically, the column headings that you would see over on the engagement tab are actually listed at the bottom of the screen. Again, as I stated a moment ago, you can go in and modify the titles of these workflow stages to be pretty much anything you want. However, you cannot add or subtract any of the workflow stages. So you will have 6 workflow stages within the program. It's not required that you use all those workflow stages, but that column will be there no matter what we do. Up above from that, you'll notice that I have a listing of my engagement types. Now, some of these engagement types are automatically generated. You'll have the LaCert, LaCert Individual, Corporate, S-Corp, Fiduciary, Exempt. All of those are what we call LaCert tax engagements, or engagement types. And each of those engagement types pull over from the LaCert program. Basically, the engagement types will pull in the statuses that are associated with LaCert, and then you will have to go into those particular engagement types, those statuses to the applicable workflow stage. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If I click on Individual, then the statuses that I have created under my individual program will display. Here, I've got Performed, which is mapped as not started. I've got Info Pending, which is mapped as in process. I've got Under Review, which is mapped as in process. For many of you, if you're just starting, then all these statuses are going to go over to a review workflow stage. That's because the developers didn't want to take liberties with trying to determine exactly what workflow stage you were in. If I look at this, I can go down here and click on Perform It and open it up, and then I can assign it to whatever stage I would like. Here, I've assigned Perform It to Not Started, but if I chose, I could assign Perform It to Received if I didn't age the client until the client actually came in and brought in information. No matter how you go in and categorize your items, I would generally suggest that you put your sort order in orders of 10. Here, Perform It will go to Not Started with a sort order of 10. When I save that, the information will be written back to the file, and you'll see that I have now updated my Performed status so that it is now not started. Now, the sort order only controls how the items are listed in the status code field, basically from top to bottom. So you might be asking, okay, why did you put it in order of 10? Basically, I put it in an order of 10 so that you can go back and add additional statuses during your normal operations. And if you do so, you won't have to jump back over here and then renumber a whole list just because you added a particular status. Once I've gone in and configured the program the way I want, so that the status will flow through the different workflow stages, then I would go ahead and save this information and just go back. The changes that I just made will show in the engagements area, and you should see some things automatically reallocate. Let's turn for a moment to non-tax related work. If I go over here to Admin and come down to my engagement types, you'll notice down towards the bottom I have the ability to go in and create different engagement types, non-tax related engagement types. If I scroll back up, I would do that by clicking on Add. Now, when I click on Add, it will automatically open up an engagement type and ask me to name that type. You must have an engagement type before you can associate the particular engagements of that type of engagement. So, for instance, let me go down here to Business Incorporation. After I set up the engagement type, I can go in, name the engagement type, and then I can set out the statuses that I would like to use. Here, I've got one not started. I knew I needed to do the project, but I haven't actually received the information for the project. Then I have received. Then I have in process. It will go to a review section, and then it will eventually go over to an admin for maybe billing. Down at the bottom, signed forms. Well, signed forms doesn't really work in this situation, so I can go in and change the status to complete. and then that way record the different statuses. Also, should I want to add a different status, I can do so by going to a line and simply pressing enter to open up a different status line. Once I've finished adding any statuses or modifying any statuses that I want, I would go ahead and click on Save. At this point in time, I'm basically sitting in a situation where I would again need to go in and map the statuses that I created to the particular workflow stage that they're associated with. Now, for those that are going to be linked straight to the workflow stage that I've already set up, I really don't need to make much modification. For those that are going to have some tweaking on it, I will need to go back and basically reassign them where I want them to go. A moment ago, I did business and corporation, so I'm going to open that back up, and I'm just going to verify that things are going where I want them to be. After having looked at it, I noticed that my complete field is not where I want it to be, so I'll click the down arrow and go ahead and move that to Assign Forms section, and then save it. The changes that I have basically implemented are going to automatically reflect on the engagement screen. And that's in a nutshell how you would go in and assign your engagement types and how you would set up engagements to flow through your program. Now, as we talked about a little bit earlier, you're going to have several different sources of engagements that are coming in. Some of the engagements are going to be referring back to what we call Lacert or tax engagements. When you connect to Lacert, basically every client that exists inside the Lacert program is going to have a client created for them. Inside those clients, as you see here, you're going to see a particular tax-related engagement that is set up automatically. Now, these tax-related engagements set up individually, and they tie back to a particular client inside the Lacert program. So if you have a situation where you made a copy of a tax return and have gone in and made modifications to it, then inside the Intuit Practice Management program, what you're going to see is a client that has a little drop-down arrow right here. That's to reflect that there are two clients or more that have the same social security number that basically exist in different files, and you're trying to determine which one is the primary. Now, down below, the effects of this are going to be that you will get a separate engagement for each client that exists. So in this situation, I only see one engagement, but had I copied the client, then I would see two engagements, and so on. These engagements that come up automatically from Lacert are going to have the tax year, the module type, and then the client's name that appears in them. You will also see the status that comes over from the Lacert program, and the due date will be automatically calculated from the tax returns themselves. Basically, if you have an individual tax return, it's due 4/15. If you have a partnership, it's due 3/15. If you go in and you extend a Lacert individual tax return, it's going to be 10/15. So you see how that works. Say that Mr. Alarcon is basically going in to create engagements and incorporate, and to do that I'm going to want to go over here and click on Add Engagements. In this situation, I'm going to type in the client's name. Then I'm going to put in the type of engagement that I'm doing. Then I'm going to stipulate an end date. Now, if I was doing just a single item, I would go ahead and stipulate an end date of whenever it actually occurred. If I'm trying to set up a reoccurring engagement, however, I'm going to roll this back for however long the client's going to be with me. Now, if you don't know when the client's going to be with you, I'd suggest going in and setting up an engagement that has an extremely long life. Let's take a look at that. After I've selected the year-end date, I would want to go back to the item and update when that engagement is going to actually expire. Once you've done this, go ahead and click Next. You'll notice that the next screen I come to is an engagement tracking screen. Basically, I'll have the engagement, the name of the person involved, what type of engagement it is, the engagement name itself, the current status, the priority, the hours estimated. Below that, you'll see a start and end date. and then I'll be able to go in and stipulate that it reoccurs at a set interval. Now you might be noticing that there's no annual interval here. If I choose a monthly interval and I have it occur every 12 months, then you've effectively created an annual reoccurring engagement. Now earlier I mentioned that the tax engagements were coming in from the ListCert program, and that is true. However, right now our tax engagements only work with 1 year of the program, namely 2013. If you have a client that comes in with a return that needs to be amended or refiled in some way, then what you can do is you can jump over to your admin screen, you can go down to your engagement types, and you can put in whatever the case may be, whether it's an auditing issue that the client representing client for auditing, or whether it's another issue such as client needs to do an amended tax return. When you put that in, you'll probably have a series of steps that you'll want to stipulate. Again, this is just like entering your statuses earlier. After you've done so, you would save that information. You would want to map those particular current statuses to the engagement's current order flow stages. Now that you know how to set up your engagement types and configure your engagement so that the current statuses match up to a particular workflow, you're ready to go in and basically set up some information. There is one thing I would caution you about. Your dashboard can be configured in many different ways. If you do not configure your dashboard so that you're capturing your engagement type information, then basically you will not be able to run productivity and profitability reports on the engagement type. This is a best practice that I would basically encourage. If you're not sure on whether you're going to be using something or not, I would go ahead and start using it because you can always scale it off later. At this point in time, we are largely done with talking about engagements. If you have any questions, please give us a call at 1-800-445-1882. Again, that number is 1-800-445-1882. Just choose option 2 to speak with support. Thank you very much for your time.